So if there was an emergency then they'll come out to do with the flags?
With the boat, yeah. And they had an old Pukon, and the wreck of it was in Lochtordy before Francis's built the Huntsman there.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and it was still there, but it was one of these old made Pukons, probably made on the long haul.
That's great history.
And
it's great to know.
What you have here then is you have the outer courtyard, and in Bill's time his mother used to plant flowers out there, and you could have a vegetable garden there as well. And you also had a sundial in the inner courtyard. Just below us there, in that grassy patch there, you could see a stone there with metal fittings in it.
Yes.
That was the foundation for the sundial. Now, within 2 days of the lighthouse being abandoned by the Commissioners of Irish Rights, that sundial was stolen. And it's a shame, but it meant that they could always tell the time if the clock was broken or whatever, and the sundial was calibrated for the particular island. So if you found that sundial somewhere in an antique shop at some stage,
you'd know where it came from.
You'd know that this is where it came from. It came from Mutton Island.
Jeez.
And then you had the workshops here and various stores for paint, for paraffin, and in later times then gas barrels at the very end of the life of the lighthouse. They used gas. Before it was automated, what they did was they used paraffin.
Right.
And then when it was automated in the late 70s or early 80s, they used gas, and they took the people off it. But then eventually what was happening was that there was so much light from the city that it drowned out the effect of the light here. So it wasn't really effective anymore. Now this is all just perspex. It's only in there
I see that
on a temporary basis until we get the glass.
And
But that was 3/4 inch thick glass.
Was it 3/4 inch thick glass?
Yeah. And what you had then was in this area here, over here, you had red glass, and then the light flickered at so many intervals and so on. And you also had a curtain on the inside, and the curtain was there so that if there was very hot sunshine, and that it didn't set the whole place on fire, you know. So the original light that was here was taken out of it in the late 70s or early 80s. But the Commissioners of Irish Lights are giving us a similar mechanism, and we can just display that downstairs as well.
Very good, very good. Oh, very good.
That nest, no matter how many times that falls, they come back to it.
Do they?
Yeah. It's an incredible nest.
Well, that's a great history, Jim.
Yeah.
Great history.
Down here then you have the water tanks. Every place was scrubbed scrupulously. So these are Valentia slate.
Valentia slate and water tanks.
Yeah. And then the paving then is York stone. And there was a little faucet, a little tap on each of those tanks. And the water came down, you can see it was hived off from the
from the roof there, yes.
And that was used then to flush down this area here. And then there's another inner courtyard behind these buildings. You can just see the top of the tank.
Yes.
That was a big water tank, a big concrete water tank, and that was divided in two. So if you wanted to clean out one side of it, you would empty it and you'd lime wash it, and you'd still have water in the other half of it. And then what you had was the keeper's accommodation, his bedrooms, his kitchen, the stores for the paint and so on. Now they got their supply of coal and of turf every year.
Oh, I did.
That was brought by boat. But there was certain painting at a lower level that they would do themselves.
Okay.
But the other painting then had to be done by the staff of the Commissioners of Irish Lights. Here's a letter about a man called Brendan Behan. And Brendan worked for the Commissioners of Irish Lights for a short time. But it was a letter of complaint about poor Brendan because he spilled paint all over the place, and there was more of it on the ground and on the walls and so on. And it recommended his instant sacking. So I suppose the Commissioners of Irish Lights might have helped Brendan's career by getting him back into writing rather than painting.
Isn't that a good one? Jeez, that's a great one. That's a great one. Yeah.
First time I came out here, shortly after I became Heritage Officer, I came out because this is a protected structure.
Yes.
And we needed to get a programme of works started. So we applied to the department for money to restore this. Now it has a couple of levels of protection. It's an archaeological site, so it's a recorded monument, so it has that level of protection. It's also a protected structure, so it has that level of protection from the point of view of its architecture and all the planning legislation. And the third thing of importance about the island is the natural heritage legislation. This is a bird sanctuary. It's important for Arctic terns. It's also important for the swans. Occasionally nest here as well. The Claddagh swans, the famous Claddagh swans. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to balance all these aspects of the heritage, to build the cultural and the natural heritage. And the hope is that eventually, when it's all restored and we have all the artefacts in place, that it will look as if the lighthouse keeper has just gone around the corner for a smoke and will be back.
Great, great. Yeah, I can be lighthouse keeper. I want to have a smoke. So the tide, I didn't realise that. I thought the tide came in a lot more closer to the place.
Well, it was 60%. There was around the time of Hurricane Debbie, there was a lot of damage
Yes.
down here because that wall there, we rebuilt that wall.
Okay.
That had been knocked completely
With the storm.
with the storm, and what we've actually put holes in the base of that wall so that the water
Will come through.
come through and wash out again. Occasionally there was the odd wreck. There was an old coal boat was up on the rocks there, and there's the remnants of an old trawler there as well. I think you can see it on the rocks there somewhere
Down
out
here, is it?
Yeah.
Is there?
But usually what happened was that the boats were salvaged, and that was that. They didn't remain wrecks.
Yes. Just they're taking a chance walking down there, Jim, aren't they?
Well, there's a lot of people going over picking shellfish,
All right.
and they're still at they're still doing that, and they say that the water has cleared up a lot since the sewage treatment plant.
That's
An
true.
awful lot of people come here to pick shellfish.
Do you know anything, Jim, about was there a plane that went down out here somewhere in the war?
There's a plane that went out. There was somewhere in Galway Bay, but I think there's an archaeologist, a marine archaeologist, and I think he was talking about it recently, that it had been, they had discovered the wreck of it.
Yeah, geez, I remember the story for 8 years ago. You know, they were talking about the grandfather being about it and this and that.
Now, apart from that, then, apart from the lighthouse itself, you also had a buoy over there, another navigational aid. Yes. So the Commissioners of Irish Lights they'd be responsible for maintenance of that out there. The Margaretta Shoal is out there. That's the Margaretta buoy. And then you have these more modern navigational aids. You see the striped one over
Yes,
here.
yes.
But the other thing about all of the lighthouses is that each of them was painted a different group of colours so that you could tell it. So even if you were a foreigner and weren't really well up on the Irish coast, you could look up a chart and that would tell you where you were.
I didn't know that now.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So what happened with the restoration is that because we had a duty of care to restore the protected structure or whatever, we got some money from the Department of Arts, Heritage and Local Government, and then at a later date then the Heritage Council came in and they gave us some money to restore the roofs. So what we have is a fall scheme here. Mike Davis is running the fall scheme. He is their supervisor, and the lads are working away on various things here, whether it's the woodwork or the restoration and the cleaning of the walls and the restoration of the old stonework and so on.
Gee, that's great.
And so you have a team on one week and off the other week, and they're working away here.
Very good. Very good. Jim, what was the idea of the little holes in the walls here?
Those were ventilation holes, because what you didn't want is, you didn't want condensation clogging up the inside of the...
Oh, the inside of it, yes.
Yeah. And there's also other holes. You can see them in the floor, and they have a brass...
Yeah, I was looking at them inside.
You see a ventilator.
Yes.
And they... if you saw this from the ground, you could see where the vents came out from there. So it was well aired and so on. You can also see where somebody in their spare time put a nice stencil design on the walls.
Yes. Oh, I see that. Yes.
And you had the same stencil design downstairs in the keeper's house, except that most of it had gone by the time we started the restoration work. So eventually what we hope to do is put back
replace the glass. Yes.
Now these screw out. These are metal pieces that come out in a quadrant, and you have to unscrew them. And this is brass, and each of these is a little Roman numeral on it to tell you which one it is. So these have to come out and be treated, and you have to put in glass. Now it would be very difficult to get that sort of glass now, because it was 3/4 of an inch thick, an unusual thickness. Whether we'll be able to get it, or whether we'll be able to get it abroad or not, we don't know. But we'll restore what we can of it anyway.
Well, that's great. But you know what? Now I'm just gonna look around this way, because as a kid going down there on Gretton Road when I used to be swimming, I used to be looking across here. I said, "Yeah, I never thought I'd be on this lighthouse."
Well, you know, it's a great view,
isn't it?